So I'm just finishing up an art piece here for a community art project. So I'm really looking forward to sharing this piece with you all and explaining why I'm making it, how I made it, what my process is and what the thinking is behind it, what it means. But first off, let me just say hello and welcome. Thank you for joining me. If you're new here, I'm Randy, and RLD Studio is my art channel. I really appreciate you joining me today. I hope you'll stick around. If you do like this kind of content, please do me a solid, leave me a comment, tell me what you enjoy. Also consider liking, subscribing, sharing with friends, all that good stuff. I really appreciate it. For years now, I've been participating in a community art project that's been organized by a friend of mine, Larry Holland. This community art project is called Look Up Decatur, and it's a citywide art installation that encourages people to get off their screens and look up and explore and engage in the world and find art in unexpected places. Larry has a whole network of artists and local artists, and so we create art from time to time and rotate out the signs, and it's really fun to be a part of it. So here I've already prepped the sign. I have a couple videos on how I prep these signs for painting with acrylic paint. So if you haven't seen those, be sure to go check those out if you want to know how to do that. I'm excited about this project because I ended up approaching it a little bit different from a style perspective than I ever have another painting. I decided I want to put these bugs on top of my normal abstract backgrounds, and I'm not using these specific images here for reference. I'm just using them to get sort of the shape of the bugs and kind of place where I want them to be. I already also have like a ton of sketches from previous abstract paintings that I've done or studies that I've done, and I'm going to be using those to just draw inspiration from to create this background for this piece. I have lots of sketchbooks and doodles where I've sort of explored these types of images, and it's all packed with images that mean something to me, that have to do with my childhood or my past or even my present and future. So just my life and a reflection of some of the things that have happened, some of my experiences, and then the people around me. So the whole point of this thing, again, is to get people's attention or maybe surprise them, and make them stop for a second, pause, slow down. I've put art up in a lot of places and just watched how most people just walk right by and don't even notice it. And I get that, we're all busy, everybody's got too much going on, we're all distracted, we're all living our lives, and sometimes these things are just transparent to us. For the longest time now, I've been creating art that has double meanings and hidden symbols and all sorts of little layers and textures and things that you have to really look at it to notice it. I like to create art that allows viewers to see something new every time they see it, and it's hard to connect with an audience if they're not even stopping to look, right? So in this piece, I very intentionally decided to do what I normally do with my abstract pieces with the background of the piece. Keep it layered, have a lot of interconnected objects and shapes, and embed symbols and stories and all those things that I like to hide in my paintings. But I wanted to put something on top of that would grab your attention, I guess, if you were walking around and you just glanced up. Maybe without the objects that I put on top, you would just see a pattern, or maybe it just looks like graffiti, or something that maybe wasn't that interesting at a glance. So I wanted to put something on top of the art that I normally do to really grab the attention of passersby. So I decided to use golden scarabs, and partly because I'm intrigued by insects and bugs and animals, and I've been watching a lot of Greg Simpkins. Like, if you've seen my other videos, I've mentioned it a lot, and so I just want to get better at painting those things. I also wanted to use a subdued background, use the Zorn palette as my color palette for the background, so that whatever bugs I put on top would really pop off. Initially I was thinking I might do colors like maybe red, blue, green. In the end, I felt like a kind of a green gold was good enough. It was more subtle, but it allowed the bugs to still pop off the background. once I started filling in the colors, I'm basically just choosing from a very limited palette. I did a whole video on the Zorn palette and explaining, what that is, and there's lots of videos out there about it. And I'm not really trying to overthink this. I'm just basically using a handful of colors, grays, some sort of greenish grays, tans, pink, red, orange, like those kind of things, but toned way down. For the most part, just making sure I don't place the same colors right next to each other. The whole time I'm thinking I could tone this if I need to. You might have noticed at one point I stopped and hit the whole thing with matte medium because the paint wasn't adhering to my primer as well as I'd like. Once I got all the background shapes laid down, I outlined them with just straight black. I know, having done this so many times with other pieces of art, that it's a really neat technique that will sort of pull everything all together. It's kind of one of the styles that I've been working in for a long time, and it's really satisfying. It's really fun to see it all kind of come together at that stage. So I had left these empty spots here for where the bugs are going to go, and my intention was that I didn't want to put any paint there because I didn't want any texture to sort of show through once I started painting the bugs. But for whatever reason, the paint was really bumpy when I first started laying it down in that area, and I ended up having to sand it, at least for the first one. It wasn't as bad for the last two. I hit it with some sandpaper and kind of knocked it down and just went for it. From here on out, it's really pretty straightforward. I have a lot of reference photos, and I'm just playing around with light and dark and trying to bring these forms together, make the bugs look like they have some depth and dimension to them, and playing around with where the highlights are. I end up starting over on the first bug because I didn't like the two highlights where I placed them, and it was kind of distracting to me. For anyone who's curious, this is a combination of yellow ochre and titanium white. There's some green gold in there. There's some alizarin crimson, probably some burnt sienna. I struggle sometimes to specifically talk about the exact colors that I use because a lot of what I do is instinctual. I just have a ton of paint and I don't adhere to like a specific formula, I guess, every single time. There's some things that I do that I repeat because I know they work, like glazing over these bugs with the green gold. This transparent green gold I know is going to add a certain effect and kind of bring out some highlights. And using like quinacridone nickel gold is interesting for crevices and darker areas, but I also layer on burnt umber and, like I said, alizarin crimson and other colors, and so I just play with it, and that's what I did here. And I just focused on the one bug at first just to make sure the process was working, and then I applied that to the other two. So I think that the most interesting thing about this whole project to me was that I kind of broke through into a new style. I've been trying to combine abstract art with realistic art for years now, mainly just because I think it's interesting and I feel like there's something about it that just intrigues me and I want to explore it more. And so this was the first time I think that I truly successfully combined those two styles, and I really like the illusion that it creates. People have seemed to respond to this, the folks that have seen it, and it gives me a lot of ideas, right, about what I could do in the future, playing with depth, playing with multiple levels, storytelling, drawing people in, combining again, the two different types of styles. I just think it's really interesting. I'm excited to see, have this thing up out in the public and see what people think. I'm hopeful that, others enjoy it as much as I do. I'll have prints up on my website, hopefully by the time this video is edited, and I'll have a link in the description as soon as those are ready. If you want to print, go grab one. I really appreciate it. All the support helps. Again, if you watch this much, I really appreciate you sticking around. If you want to support me in another way, I also have a link to buy me a coffee. Really appreciate everybody on this journey. Thanks for watching, and see you next time. Peace.